You need facts, figures, scores, and scoops, and the truth.
Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Behind the Gloves with myself, Andre Aronsa and Grant Johnson. And today we have a pressing topic to discuss. You're going to want to hear about this. Grant, it is the status of South African football where clubs are concerned.
Yeah, Andre, it's a bit of a problem at the moment. There's obviously a club that's in dispute, and we're basically a 15-club league at this point, and nobody knows quite what's happening. And I think it's something that needs to be discussed because it's not the first time. And as we know, there's a history of clubs that have fallen by the wayside or are no longer, and it's a pressing issue.
Yes, it is. I want to go back a little bit in history in terms of just to give the viewers a sense of what the implications are and the impact of how it works. I look at clubs and one of the first ones that come to mind are Bidvest Wits, so formerly Wits University, a 99-year history of football in the NSL, going to the PSL, over time, gone, just like that.
Just a quick question, who owns them now?
Good question. Who does own them? Very difficult to actually think about that because the status has gone from one to the other, and nobody knows what the process has been. And
there was a relegation involved somewhere, and there was a team that got promoted, and I don't think anybody even knows who owns the club anymore.
Another one also that comes to mind for me is Bloemfontein Celtic. When I look at over recent times, the passionate fans that a team like that used to have in their stadium in Bloemfontein, it just blows my mind that all of a sudden, just like that, they don't have anyone to support. And I remember as an away team, I used to love going to play there because as difficult as it was to go and play there with those vocal fans up against you, they totally supported you after the game. So win or lose, we found ourselves as the away team walking across to their home fans and actually singing with them. That's the kind of vibe that the local game is missing at the moment.
Well, I tell you, we played with the national team. We played in Bloemfontein a few months ago, and packed stadium, amazing atmosphere. Fans loved it, and you can see they're missing football. And obviously the club we're talking about that's now in dispute is Royal AM, and they're the ones who bought Bloemfontein Celtic. And now, not only is Bloemfontein Celtic's gone, but now we are a team short in the PSL.
And I also want to talk about a team that for me has such a big history in terms of how they started off the PSL, for example, and that's your old team, Manning Rangers, also gone.
Yeah, I mean, we won the league in 96-97, the inaugural PSL title. We won that. Chatsworth Stadium on a Friday night was packed. I mean, you know what it was like coming to play against us. Teams hated it. We used to wet the pitch. Teams arrived there. We'd wear 6 studs. They'd wear multi-studs. They'd be slipping all over the place. And it was a tactic for us. And the fans at Chatsworth loved being there every Friday night. That's no longer. And yeah, it's a shame because a lot of those clubs that were big institutions, have won trophies, have got a history in South African football, are no longer.
The fans are such a big part of the game, and they always have been such a big part of the game. You and I know this from our days when we played in front of tens of thousands of fans at international level and at derby level. The game is nothing without the fans. No matter where in the world you go, the game is nothing without the fans. But I think what the local game has come down to is perhaps letting down the fans. The stadiums are no longer packed. When you go to besides the derby, of course, they're no longer packed to the rafters because when we speak about clubs losing their status, losing their history, they lose the fans. So the fans have got nowhere to go. So if I'm a fan, I don't know that I've actually got a home ground to go and watch my team. I don't even know that I have a team to go and support. And I think the game is becoming lost to the fans from that perspective.
No, agreed 100%. I think there's so many reasons why a fan doesn't go to the stadium anymore. And I think we need to change that. Things need to change. We need more entertainment at the stadiums. We need more, whether it's musicians, like the sports minister has said recently. There's lots of musicians in each province that could do with the exposure. And why not have them at the stadiums during football matches? Before the game, have an extravaganza like it was back in the day with Abdul Bamji and there's a whole host of them that used to make it an absolute entertainment to go and watch a football match. There's none of that anymore. I hear stadium announcers that can't even say the players' names properly, or if there's a minute's silence, it doesn't do it justice to what it should be, and I think those things need to change in the game.
I almost feel like we need to get into the hard, tough discussions around this process because it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And I almost feel like this is a question that I need to ask you as well. Is it just a cool thing to own a football club these days, or is it a thing that maybe club owners feel they can make money off and get rich off it? Is it a thing where genuinely club owners are true football fans? They are financially well backed to see out the process of owning a club. I'm trying to understand where it sits with that.
I think there's not enough maybe due diligence done because it's not just about having the money. Yes, you might have the money right now to pay to buy the club, but it takes a lot more than that to run a football club. It needs to be run as a business. It needs to be run professionally, and that takes a huge financial or deep pockets to run these clubs. And I understand the guys buying the teams are passionate about football. They love the game. They're fans of the game. But you've got to be more than that. You've got to be a astute businessman who's buying it for the right reasons, to grow the league, to make the league more professional, to make the league one of the best in Africa, which I think it is. But those are the reasons to buy a football club, not just to the status of owning a football club or saying I own a club. It's got to be more than that. You've got to do it for the love of the game.
So I think that there are critical implications right now. And you mentioned all of a sudden, just like that, the current PSL has become a 15-team league. There are implications to that. Other clubs who've played them, who are waiting to play against Royal AM, for example, these decisions have to be taken into account and made in good time. You don't want these things spilling over into the end of a season, for example, where there's uncertainty, because obviously there are league winners at stake, and there are relegation candidates at stake. So there's an effect throughout the league table as well. This is a critical time where hard decisions will have to be made.
Absolutely. And even if I look at the league sponsor, Betway, I mean, they can't be happy that suddenly they signed up for a 16 league team and now it's a 15 league team, and it puts the league into disrepute. So the decisions have to be made quickly. Back in the day, we used to lose points in the boardroom for all sorts of reasons, and a lot of those decisions were made at the end of the season. We can't have that happening. The league is a lot more professional these days. There's TV rights, there's TV broadcast, there's sponsors on board. All of these things need to be taken into account. I look at the players at Royal AM and the staff. I mean, I would hate to be in their position at the moment because they don't know whether they've got a job or not. Can they leave the club? Can they go to another team? I don't know. I really feel for them, and I wouldn't want to be in their shoes.
I think for me, another critical component, obviously, from that perspective, is credibility. The PSL is undoubtedly one of the best leagues on the African continent. One of the richest, one of the most supported, well supported. Those decisions are critical to keep it that way. And we, as a league, as the role players within the structures at various levels, it's something that we cannot mess around with, because we need to keep the credibility flying high from a South African perspective.
Well, we can't afford to lose any more teams. And there's too many changing of teams and changing of names and changing of the city that they're playing in. Like you said earlier, how are the fans supposed to support a team if they're moving around all over the place? You sort of support a team this week. Next week they've moved to another town. I really wish that during the 2010 World Cup, teams were given a stadium, and maybe some of the stadiums might have been built a bit smaller to accommodate local teams. And at the end of that 2010 World Cup, that there would be more representation of a team at that stadium in that province. They could even share a stadium. It'd be great. But at the moment, no club that I know of has a stadium.
So finally, and I think for me it needs to lead maybe to a question to you. If I were a football-loving supporter, just a neutral football-loving supporter out there, a fan of the game, either supporting a team or just backing the game, watching every football game that I could because I have the passion for it, and I'm seeing the state of the league at the moment, with 15 teams, with clubs being sold off and new owners coming in, not keeping the club for long because they cannot afford to do that type of thing. As a fan of the game, perhaps I would be asking the question, do we need rule and law changes or amendments to owning statuses in football teams?
So having said all of this, I still think the league is one of the best, but, and this is a big but, it can be so much better. And with those rules and regulations in place, before teams are just sold and moved and name changed and all of these things, if the proper rules and the proper restrictions are put in place, I think this league can go on leaps and bounds and be a massive entertainment. And it's all about entertainment, isn't it? The fans are there to be entertained. The players, the staff, the teams are Hollywood actors playing out a role to entertain fans. That's what you've got to focus on. That's what the game's got to be about. And I believe the PSL has that.
So you and I have our own and different opinions about the game and that, and we fight a lot about it. And we don't always agree on certain things, but this is one thing I completely agree with you on, is how we get the state of football in South Africa to full stadiums again. And I think perhaps these are some of the few discussion points that maybe could potentially lead us on the right track for getting the game back to where it's supposed to be from a fan supporting perspective in the stadium. We've got beautiful World Cup stadiums. I, for one, want to see those stadiums packed to the rafters, whoever plays in those stadiums on any given weekend again.
Well, we've got the best infrastructure in Africa in terms of stadiums. And we've got the league, we've got the teams. We possibly could do with more sponsors. And maybe that's one way of attracting more finances into the clubs, is allowing them more than just 2 sponsors, maybe additional sponsors on the jerseys or on the shorts, or I've seen rugby teams, for example, having sponsors on their bums when they go down for a scrum. So that, I mean, we've got to think out of the box here. You've got to get money into the game, money into the teams. That's the only way we're going to survive.
So this is never an easy topic to discuss. I realize that. And for me, I hope in its small way that what we've discussed now on this particular segment of the show plays a small role in setting it on the right path, because I think football deserves it, the fans deserve it, and literally the nation deserves it.
Well, basically, we're not having a go at it or dig at anybody. We just want the best for the game. We've been in it for so long. We love the game. We're passionate about the game. We just want the best for it.
Another thing, I agree with you.
You need facts, figures, scores, and scoops, and the truth.